Okay, start. Yeah, this is my initial
Your concept map.
concept map for the assessment.
So do you want to talk a little bit through it, what you did?
Yes. In originally, we developed the concept map. Without this is the red one.
Yeah.
This is the assessment. Is my I think about the assessment. Because I have doing the assessment for my module,
Yeah.
I think about assessment is related to the learning outcome,
Yeah.
and as related to the aim,
Yes.
that is also related to the method, and
Yeah.
has some purpose. So this I think about has the concept. I also think about the assessment has the examination. So you have the examination, assessment also has the assignment, and after that, I think assessment will assessment the knowledge of the student, and the knowledge of the as well as some the area and the practical and the deadline and the skills and the technical, and after that we have assessment, we have the grade, we have the result, we have the quantity.
Mm-hmm.
So after that, all the concept, the tutor asked me to organize it,
Yeah.
and I need to reorganize it the different level of the hierarchy,
Okay.
as well as draw the line. So for example, I think the assessment include the method, but from here, when I draw the something, this something. It's very hard for me to find the connection for the particular, for example.
Okay.
And you see the word, sometimes I use the same word, that means the test or exam.
Yeah.
So that means I think the concept, the original plan, that is maybe it is not much accurate. And after that, the Ian asked us to work with the colleague,
Yeah.
and to add in this is a red tick stick
Yes.
to tell what is your examples, what you used for your module.
Yes.
So this is, for example, my module 1CB001.
Yeah.
When I doing this is the module, I have the result. And also the 3ZB004, it is one module that has some the grade. So as well as the skills, the 1CB001 it is programming.
Yes.
They're programming that has the technical skills, how you write down your applications,
Yes.
as well as the technical also assessment. This is the 3CB04. This is the 1CB. This is programming and artificial intelligence.
Yes.
And using from the computer science background. So all my access the people is about we have the result, very
Yes.
clear result, and we also access the skills and the technicals. And this is one, and all the modules has the different assessment. So one of my module, this is artificial intelligence, that has the examination,
Yeah.
and the rest of them, there is the assignment,
Yeah.
and the project, work on the project. So
Okay.
we call the assignment.
Yes. Yeah.
And I think this is my overview of my understanding of the assessment in the lecture 1 and the lecture 2. Before I reading some of the related articles.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. And that's interesting. So you think, in just picking up on the bit around examinations and assignments, are the assessments you put assignment here? Do you refer to that as kind of a written assessment? Are you talking about an essay or an assignment, or do you have no essays? Is it all kind of project-based assignments? I mean, what is the variation of assignment types? What's it like in computer science? Is there only essay, kind of essay or exam, or other?
Yes, I think it's a very good point. Just now I want to talk about this is maybe the very good point. So for the assignment, just now you asked me the question, I think we have the different assignment. We have a different assignment.
Yeah.
For example, in the programming, in the introduction to programming, we have the in-class assignment.
Yeah.
It's not in class. It has some like the week by week the assignment.
Okay.
So that means student need to submit your assignment, and week by week to enable the tutors for me to know the progress of the student.
Okay.
Because the year 1 student, some of them they has the programming experience before,
Yes.
some of them they don't have.
Okay.
So I needed to make sure all the students could be keep up with the same stage.
So are those submissions, are those, sorry,
Sorry.
that's okay, let's see. Are those, so those are formative submissions, and do they get feedback from you at each of those, on each of those submissions? Each week you give them some feedback about their assignment? So you give them formative feedback each week?
Not all of the assignment, just some few of them.
Okay.
Because for us, the assignment we have a lot of assignment.
Yes.
So we have 10 or sometimes more than 10, and I cannot give all of them.
Yes.
I just give some selected a few of them.
Okay.
It's
Some
format,
general
yeah,
feedback.
for the format. For example, this week, I selected maybe 3 or 5 exercises.
Yeah.
I give them the formative feedback.
Yes.
But after after one semester, for example, this semester, I will give them the student really the formative feedback for give to the each student.
Yeah.
And for the particular exercise, for example, the 5 exercises, I will give these 5 exercises, give them very formal feedback.
Yes.
And then based on this one, I also give them the instructive. For example,
Yeah.
you are going to get which grade, because for year 1
Okay.
we didn't give them exactly the grade. We just give them and tell them you will be get from the 19 to the 100 or 80 to the
Yes,
19.
yeah.
We don't give them exactly,
Yeah.
but let the student know. So this is the.
So they get, some of them get a kind of an estimated or a rough kind of formative grade for each of their submissions. So I mean, so there's also maybe there's a kind of a gap here between how you design the assignment and then maybe the difference between formative assessment and the summative assessment. So you're obviously doing quite a bit of work around formative assessment each week.
Yes.
In the lead up towards the final summative submission,
Yes.
because there is a.
Yes, you are right. The formative assessment.
That's the back. So there's a lot of formative assessment, which leads towards the final summative assessment.
Yeah. Maybe this.
So,
is
you've mentioned so something specific. Actually, it's more important in the first year to give some of those students kind of more regular feedback to tell them that they're on the right path. So do you think that's less important for second years because they become a bit more used to what's required of them and that kind of thing? So that's a very significant idea, isn't it, around supporting first years, kind of giving them more support at the very start, scaffolding that support in the first years. So that's a good example of understanding your learners and understanding the different levels that your learners are at.
Yes, for the first year student, yes, I will give them very the formative assessment because surprise me. Which way? This is right.
Yes, just not sticking.
Yeah, because the student in the first year, for example, in this week, I also give them the in class it's not the examination, similar examination,
Yeah.
but I didn't mark them.
Yeah,
I just give them the 30 minutes to ask them to do the self-assessment,
okay, yes.
to let them know
Yeah.
how to say it, your knowledge it is
Yes.
and could be meet go to the second stage or not.
Yes.
So this is I give them just for the year 1 the student.
Mm-hmm. Check their understanding and their knowledge. Yeah.
I think from here maybe we can has the gap is the formative and the summative, and then
Yeah.
we change it to the assignment or some the examination. I think the formative will have some not the assignment. The formative we can have the assignment, but the assignment should be divided to the maybe the in class.
Yes, yeah.
In class maybe we call the exercises or
Yes.
some
Yes. Yeah. So.
or the in class maybe some with not examination or in class self assessment.
Yes.
The exercises
Yeah.
to let them to access them, and
Yeah.
the assignment also has the semester assessment.
Yeah.
And,
Yeah, and all of that formative exercise, of course, contributes towards the final kind of summative assessment, you know, because you're giving them the skills and the feedback they need to work towards that.
Yes, because this is for our year one student. They will have a final assignment. The final assignment, it is ask them to create the project, just create the game.
Yes.
It is a battleship. The game it is a battleship.
Yeah.
So it is very difficult. So the student, just for example, the following the 1 year, we have the formative assessment to to load their skills and improve their technical skills, and after that they have the ability to create the computer games.
Yes.
So this is the summative, the final assignment. We call the project.
Yeah, and that's the final thing they submit at the end after having all of the feedback each week to work towards that. Yes, that's really interesting. So that's the project for that module then. It's more of a project assignment rather than it's not a written essay or a written report. It's more of a kind of a project. How does that fit in with the other modules in year one? So you're assessing your students on 1CB001, is it, through a project? What kinds of assessments are they doing on the other modules? Do they do, how many modules do they do each year? Six modules?
Yeah, 1 year is six
modules,
one semester is 3.
Yes, yeah. So I guess the question is, how do you work together as a program team to make sure that you're not doing the same assignment types, or do you do all the same assignment types? Do you do anything to kind of make sure that you mix up different types of assignments so that the students are trying or doing different things?
Yes, I think because for the year one, I think we because they have just started the university's life, so we did more formative assessment. Until we have the summative assessment. The formative assessment will play the very important role in all the year. And for the year 2 student, they are very different. The year 2 student, and currently one of my teaching module, it is the software engineering. It is a group project. For every module, I just use it's very theoretical. It is very hard to do the formative assessment because I teach the knowledge just to ensure the student understanding the knowledge and bring that knowledge into your the group project activities. So from that point, the formative assessment, I can think about. I ask the student to submit for example, after 2 weeks, to ask the student submit the proposal and give the student the deadline, give the student feedback, and in classes, and also ask the student to do the presentation. It is very informal presentation, and get feedback from the classmates, as also from me. We give them some feedback, and after 2 weeks, and every week we ask the student to do something and writing something in the lab, and in the week 7, the student will be also doing another presentation. So for that presentation, it is also we can call the formative assessment because we are not marked the presentation, but all the group members should attend. If you didn't attend, your marks will be the 10% the deduced. So that's for all of them, and also give them the instruction. You need to finish maybe the section chapter 4, for example, chapter 1, 2, 3, 4, and very clear instruction. Ask them to finish them all, to check the student or give the student the lead to what's going on. And the final assessment, we call maybe the summative assessment. Ask the student to submit the group project, report on the system, as well as to do the group presentation. And beside that, we also ask the student to submit the individual report. The individual report is more like the reflective learning. So ask the student to do something. How do you every week, just like the diary, but it's not a diary. It is reflective the writing to see how you every week you learn the theory, and then how you bring the theory into your group activities.
Yeah.
You write down it for the individual report.
Yeah.
So this is for the year 2.
So yeah, I mean, so you've mentioned obviously kind of group assessment as a different way into year 2, and you've also mentioned peer assessment as well, peer review, and peer feedback. So of course, once your students are more confident and more knowledgeable in year 2, you can then encourage them to give peer review and peer feedback, which is again a very important concept for assessment, isn't it? And of course, a lot of research into peer review and peer feedback, and students kind of get a lot more out of kind of giving peer review and seeing other students' work than they do having their own work reviewed, because they get to think about things a bit differently. So one of the challenges when you introduce formative assessment is that you mentioned is that you haven't got time to give feedback to everybody on all of the formative submissions. So the way to I like the way that you're doing the kind of giving some general feedback based on a few submissions, but then into year 2 you've then got the peers to give each other feedback, which means that everyone can get feedback from each other, from their peers, because in year 2 they're more confident, more capable of giving feedback. They better understand the assessment process and how it works, kind of thing. So it's less relying on you to give them feedback in year 2. And well, that's the idea. The theory is that, you know, into year 3 they should be much more self-sufficient and much more self-aware of their own level.
Yes, because the year 3, I think it is very not like the year 2 in the lab. I don't give them the deadline, what you need to do, what you don't need to do. In the lab, I give them the instruction. I told you each week, this is something you need to learn. You need to write that in your report.
Yes.
And the year 3 student, they ask something more about the previous examples to help them to understanding what they should have to bring into their project. So this is, I think, for the year 3. I also has because of the module, the year 3 I teach the human-computer interaction. So in this module, I give them a lot of some examples, and also bring the case study to them. The case study is from the real project, my previous project, or from the last year the student the project. And I bring the project to ask them to do the case study. For example, give you 10 minutes how you design your user interfaces based on the real project, and how you have discussed it. And after that, give them some feedback.
So you're bringing them kind of real life examples, real life case studies. So it's kind of a bit of problem-based learning, or a bit of kind of experiential learning, where they're using a real case study and trying to work out the solution. So it's kind of, there's a bit of problem-based learning in that, I guess. And those kinds of things.
All of them it is the real project.
Yes.
So.
And does that, I guess then that relates to kind of the employability of the students, the experience of working on projects. I guess, well, I don't guess, is that why your assessment is designed the way it's designed? Because when they go out into employment, that's how they will be working. They'll be given a design brief or a project or a problem to solve, and they'll be working on projects, which is where I guess why computer scientists don't need to write essays. You know, they need to write reports and they need to produce projects. Not, you know, and that's why the assessment is designed the way it's designed.
Yes, you're right. Because in the year 3, I think present the project. It is most of them. It is what the peers the working project. I told them this is the project, and how do you design the user interfaces, and give them the 10 minutes. And if after them give me the answers, and then I present what I am designed for this system. So give them the feedback to see in the what's the difference, or what you can achieve from.
So there's a lot of links to kind of employability and the way the assessment's designed. And when it comes to kind of final grades and feedback, I just don't mean now there. What do you do to kind of encourage the students to reflect upon their feedback? How do you make sure that students are engaging with their feedback? and as well as the students reflecting on their grades and their assessment, do you do anything to reflect yourself about kind of how that assessment worked? How did that work well? You know, how did my students do overall? Was there anything I can change next year in the teaching to make sure that, say, if all of the students kind of maybe scored really well in one area of their project, is that because you did something different, or, you know?
I think for me, I designed the grade. It is very clear because for me, I give them the feedback. It's very clear. The criteria it is very clear. So that means for each section, for example, for the year 1 student, for example, I ask them to design the battle ship, and for the criteria, for example, if the computer can place the grid accurate, you get 20%. If the player can place the grid value accurate, the work well, and you can get 20%. And each one you get 10%, and totally it is 100%. As well as think about the object-oriented design or something, the technology. So I didn't change much for the assessment, the criteria, because that is very in details. I just like to tick the box. So if you didn't meet that one, and your marks, it is very clear. And the only different for the student, it is the feedback. For example, I read the code for the year 1 student. I read the code. I said, you need to improve for the different level of student. For example, if the student only didn't have enough knowledge, they are not high quality, and I tell the student you need to more practice. And for some students, I think they are very good in this area. And in the year 1, I told them, if you want to improve your technical skills, and the new books, what else the books you need to read to improve your technical skills. So give the feedback to the different level of the programming skills. It's for the year 1 student. And for the year 2 student, I think because it's a group project, I think most difficult for them it is the individual report. And some students write down the individual report just like the descriptive. And I told them that is not what I want. And I want you how to bring your theory into your weekly activities and write down in your report. If you didn't write down like this way, and that's the reason you get the low marks. And some students bring that knowledge into and write down in the report, then get the higher marks. As well as for the same as the human-computer interaction, the report is the same story happened for the last year. If you didn't, for example, even your interface is very good, but in your report, if you didn't show, you didn't follow the principles, what theory you used to design your color or font size, and that's the reason you get the low marks. So for the grade and the result, I didn't change a lot from the previous years. And the only change it is depend on the student the report, and depend on the student the code, and give the student different feedback. For the year 2 and the year 3, tell them why you get the lower marks, and because this is more about how to writing down the report. But for the year 1, because it's about the technical skills, I tell them how could you improve your technical skills. Depending on that has a different programming levels.
So in some respects, computer science is quite different. Well, until year 2, where they have to do the report writing, and I don't know. You may notice that if students do struggle with the report writing because they're very technically focused students, and some of the assessment for year 1 is very technical. It's very easy to see right or wrong. If the code's right, it's right. If the code's wrong, it doesn't work. And that's quite that's a certain way to assess things. If you're assessing kind of knowledge and skill, I guess, maybe what you're saying is they have a bit more difficulty when it comes to reflecting upon writing reports and reflecting on their learning and reflecting on what they're doing. So maybe it's a case that computer science is quite different to a lot of other disciplines in some respects, because not many have this kind of technical kind of right or wrong, quite straightforward.
Yes, you are right. That's the reason when I in the lectures, I bring some especially for the year 2 and the year 3. For the year 2, for the individual report, I give them the good examples. What the last year the student what they write. I told them, and this is what I want for the individual report. I don't want it just like the diary, you write it down every day what you do. I don't want that. I want you to bring your theory into your weekly activities. This is what I want. So in the lectures, I give them the examples and tell them, and it's the same story. And as well, the year 3 student, I told them for this module, the assignment, the prototype, the coding, and I'm not focused on coding. I focus on you bring the theory into your report. You didn't write them down. If you didn't write them, and you will be get the lower marks. I also bring the previous the student report, what they write, as well as for the year 2, the group project is the same. I have the very clear the template, so how to write down the group project. So I told them for this module, we are not want you guys get the very good the programming, because this is only one part, maybe the 20% of your marks. The rest of them, it is much more important than your technical skills, because you are the software engineering, you are not the developer.
So there's a difference there, isn't there, between kind of assessment of learning and assessment for learning. Those two are popular concepts in assessment. Assessment of learning, so assessing what the student has learned, so the knowledge and skill, and then assessment for learning, it's kind of them carrying out the assessment and getting the feedback in order to develop their learning. So I guess maybe there's a difference between the technical skill, assessment of what they have learned, versus assessment for learning, so helping them learn by giving them that assessment and giving them that feedback. So it might be interesting to look those ideas up, particularly for this kind of subject area.
For our computer science is quite different. If we just focus on the technical skills, that is straight away. You make the application work very well, you get higher marks. But for us, this is for the year 1. But for the year 2, we have changed already. Because we don't want you just to be the developer. We want you to have the knowledge why the system should be developed like this.
Interesting. So is that what kind of, I guess the question is what kind of drives this approach to assessment? Why do you assess the way you assess? Is it to make the students more employable in the subject field, or is it because of just the nature of the subject area? It's kind of why what are we assessing the students for? And it's quite interesting.
It's something I have done, but something I didn't have to recognize. This is how to say it, something just like, for example, the student write down the report. They just write down the report, but didn't think about there has some the theory behind that. Yes.
So I mean, it's interesting. Obviously, you kind of sometimes you do things the way you do them because it kind of makes sense to you, and you understand anything. Well, of course we do it this way because this is the subject. But I guess it's understanding what the kind of end goal is and why do they need to write reports, and why do they need to be able to obviously code and those kinds of things, and it's because it's all leading towards them becoming employable at the end, giving them the skills they need. You're right, they can't just focus on the technical skills and then leave as graduates and be able to code great, but then can't write a report or can't answer a brief or a case study or a project. So I guess that's why the assessment's designed the way it's designed, and of course designed to meet the kind of learning outcomes in the first place. Do you have individual learning outcomes for each module, or are there any kind of program learning outcomes?
Actually, we have the individual linear outcome for the different module. For example, for the year 1, the student, the linear outcome is very clear. For the technical skills, for focus on that, you can develop the programming skills, concept or something like that. And for the year 2, the software engineering, the linear outcome is very clear to improve the student the teamwork skills. They didn't focus on the programming skills, so they're very clear the teamwork skills. So what's the teamwork skills? It is how you work with your team member, work together to design your software, to plan and to choose the processing models to design your system, and then to design, have an interview with the customer, and a lot of the group activities, and before you and code the project. And after that, you also need to test your application. So you can see that it's only the one how to say the section is about the programming. And it's very clear the individual learning outcome, the teamwork.
So you give your students a lot of information about what you're looking for in the assessment and what they're being marked against. And do you think that helps the students to understand what the criteria is? And you think how do the students respond to that? Because I mean, not every program gives the students the information that they need like that about the criteria. And there's a lot of research around kind of why it is important to help the students understand the marking criteria, so that they understand what they're doing.
Yes, for every module, I give the student very clear the marking criteria. Marking criteria. So, for example, for the programming one, the introduction to programming, I told you before, and which function 20%, which function 10%. So after that, 100%. For the software engineering, the year 2 student, it's very clear. If you have discussing the process model, you have 20%. If you have a project plan in your report, you have 10%. If you have the interview, the requirement engineering section, you have 20%. If you have the software work, maybe 20%. If you have test, 20%. You can see that the software work, the system development is only 20%. The rest of them, you have 80%. So you need to follow the instruction to do your every activity, not exclude the implementation, the software.
So since you've done this and as you've mapped this out for yourself, has there been anything that's come into your mind that's made you think about this in more detail? Have you changed anything as a result, or have you thought about things in a different way? Did you stop and think why do we do it like this, or does it just because it makes sense to you?
I think I changed the style. I add more the formative assessment in my lectures after I attended the lecture. I add more the assessment. For example, you see for the year 1 student, I added more the and online in class some exercises. I actually don't add for the year 1 student. I don't add more. I just add a few. But I think the last year I don't give the feedback for. I just give the feedback for the assessment, maybe the few of them. But from this year, I try to give them the feedback for all the exercises to try. For some simple one, don't need to give them. But for some, I think it's a difficult one. I give them the more the feedback. And I also had to restructure the year 1 the teaching, because after 3 weeks I have 1 week just to give them the feedback, to go through the most of the assignment, because I think about that. If I didn't give the feedback to the student, and the students they don't understanding how to write down the program for the exercises, they still don't understand. I need to give them the formative assessment. And this for the year 1 student, I try to give them all the exercises to understand. And for the
No, go ahead. I was just going to say, do you think it's important to give students feedback early like that, so that they feel better, that they're on the right track, and that they know what they're doing? And they feel happier, because this may be related to kind of retention and progression in higher education, because sometimes one of the arguments is that maybe students in year 1, if they don't know how they're doing, they may think they're doing bad, and they don't get assessed till maybe after Christmas, so they don't get any chance to get any feedback until after Christmas. And a lot of students sometimes leave university over the Christmas period. They go home for the holidays, they don't know whether they're doing well or not, they think they're doing bad, and they don't come back after Christmas. So a lot of research and things like that, and a lot of good practice just try and combat that, is to make sure the students get some feedback early on to let them know how they're doing and to help them see how well they're doing and those kinds of things. You may not do it for that reason, but that's quite a good thing, isn't it, to give them feedback early in week 3, week 4, to say, you know, you're doing well, and help them see that they're on the right track and those kinds of things.
Yes, I don't do that for that reason.
No.
I do that for the reason, for the formative assessment, what's the advantage? The advantage of formative test told me, I think I read the article, if you don't give the student the feedback, the student don't know what they are doing it right or not.
That's right.
I read this sentence,
Yes.
so I think I need to give the student the feedback for all the exercises, especially for some the difficult one. Because for the simple one, they should do that.
Yes.
And that's the reason. And my design, I changed my design. I teach them in the 3 weeks intensive, and then I use the 1 week to ask the student and come to the lecture and give them the feedback to go through most of them the exercises.
Yeah.
And for some students, if they are very good, some of students, few of them, they are very good. I give them extra exercises to tell them you can leave the lectures and then you go to the library to borrow the book to read the to learn the new the technicals by yourselves. But for most of them, they stay in the lectures in the lab and ask them this week deadline you need to submit all the exercises. And then after, for example, this week I will check who didn't submit. If who didn't submit, I will pay attention to particular student. So this is week by week. I think the 3 weeks long, 3 times then 12 weeks. So to make sure most of them they could be keep up with the holiday space. Otherwise, if I just access them at the end of the week, for example, week 12, they didn't in the university. They're gone. So I don't know they're good or they're not good. And we cannot help them.
Yeah. So it's interesting. So it may be something to think about or something to look at, and you might think about, well, how does that help with retention? Because it's important to give the students that feedback so they do know they're doing well, and they don't go home over Christmas worrying about anything because they've had lots of opportunities for feedback before that Christmas break. So they maybe that helps keep your students, makes them come back after the Christmas.
Another thing, I changed my design, but I don't know the reason. The reason is the feedback from the last year. They think the module introduction year 1 student, the introduction to programming, they think it is very difficult. So I changed injectly the content of the module didn't change, but just only change for the beginning, for the week 1. I give them very interesting and very simple the exercises for the other programming language. But it is related to our teaching language Java. But that one is very easy and it's very simple to make them interesting in the programming. Don't let them the first week they come and then they're struggling for first week.
Absolutely, no, absolutely.
But I don't know the reason behind. I just get feedback from the student last year.
That's very important. You see, that's very much related to understanding your students and responding to quality and responding to feedback. So you've made changes based on either your NSS or your end of module and end of program evaluation or even mid module evaluations. So thinking about your assess dialogue when it comes to do your portfolio for your fellowship of the HEA.
I actually have the one reason. The one reason it is the diversity of the student. Because in this university, and some of them they're very good. That is fine. No matter I teach them the hard topic or not. But some of them they are not good, and that's the reason. If I show them very difficult in the beginning, they lose interest. So
that's related to understanding your learners, which we've already talked about as well. What makes your subject discipline different? You know, we've talked about that, and understanding the level of your learners as well. At each level, and why you design your modules the way you do, because first years need different things to second years, and third years need different things too. You know, so these are the kinds of things that can come out in your assessment discussion, your assess dialogue discussion for your fellowship of the HEA. It's kind of why you do things the way you do them, and I think you've demonstrated a really good understanding of why you assess your students and how you assess your students in those ways. I think there are some little bits of theory that you can back things up with when it comes to your kind of final submission. So theory around formative assessment, there's lots of research about that. Maybe think about and have a look at assessment for learning or versus assessment of learning. Even kind of thinking about retention and those different kinds of things. I think there's plenty of some little things that will help towards your final assessment for PCAP. I think for your assess dialogue, I think this makes a really interesting discussion, because you have quite a different group of students. There aren't many subject areas like computer science at York St John. There's no maths, there's no real science subjects. You know, maybe biomedical science as well. You get a bit of that kind of understanding, but it's quite a different subject for this university, isn't it?
Yes.
Where it's very kind of knowledge and skill based in some areas.
Yeah.
Because there's a lot of people who will argue that assessment shouldn't be about assessing surface level knowledges and skills, but that's very different for your subject. It's quite important.
Yes.
Because yes, you must know how to work in a team and work on projects and do assignment briefs and write reports, but none of that is any good if you can't get your coding right.
You are right.
So you won't get any projects, you won't have any reports to write if you can't get it to work in the first place. So it's quite a...
That's the reason the introduction program is year one.
Yes,
You need to pass year one to get the programming skills. And then we training you the other skills. But this is the fundamental.
Yes.
So that's 1 year. Just like you talk about the assessment of the learning, I think this is very interesting. I read the articles.
Yes.
Do you remember the last time I talked about the mobile app?
Oh yes.
I think it is not good for the learning. I think it's good for the assessment of learning.
Yes.
Because you get feedback or get something. Because if I write down the research paper related to the learning, I think it's very hard to prove that.
Yes.
But for the access of learning, I think it's assessment of learning, is it?
Assessment. There's the assessment of learning. So you're assessing what the students have learned.
Yeah.
And then there's an argument, or there's a concept around assessment for learning.
Yeah.
So you're giving the students assessments to help them learn more. So there's different. Yeah, no, there's different ways of looking at assessment. So is assessment for you to tell the students you're assessing what they had learned, or do you design your assessments to help them learn better?
I think it's to help them better.
Yeah.
I think assessment of learning, is it?
Assessment for learning.
Assessment for learning to
yes,
help the student learn.
Yeah.
To let the student. I read these articles.
Have a look at those.
Yeah.
Yes, it's quite interesting, and maybe I just think based on what you've said, there's quite a lot of thought goes into how all of your modules are taught and the different levels and how they're taught, and how your subject area is quite different. Very focused around, not very focused around, but there's certain types of assessment work best. But you've also got a good variety: exams, written reports, group presentations. So there's a good range of assessment types, isn't there? It's not all the same. No. It's not 6 exams in year 1 and 6 exams in year 2 and those kind of things. There's a good mix of assessment types. Yeah,
for computer science, there's a lot different assessment.
Yes,
I think for our computer science, we need to bring more the formative assessment for the year 1 student.
Yes.
And as well for some particular module in year 2 or year 3.
Yeah. But as well as formative assessment, you could also talk about peer feedback, peer review. Maybe read something around that, and just the theory to back up what you're already doing. You know, you mentioned it already happens on your program, so I guess it's kind of there's quite a lot of theory out there. People like kind of David Nicol and David Bowd, those kinds of guys who write a lot about assessment. I think it's there's a lot of things to back up what you've said, really.
Yes.
Yeah, it's really interesting. It's really interesting as an outsider who doesn't understand, how computer science is taught. It's really interesting.
Yeah, computer science is different because we have a lot of the technical report.
No, it's quite fascinating. Yeah. So, is there anything else you wanted to mention about your map?
No.
No, that's good. That's good.
Okay, thank you very much.
No, thank you.
I stop.
Yeah, you can stop the recording. That's fine.